So you're going to need some floor space to be able to roll from your back onto your belly and back onto your back. You're going to need some sort of surface that slides. So if you're on hardwood, you'll need a couple of blankets or a couple of towels that provide some slipperiness. If you're not on hardwood and you're on carpet, I have plastic dinner plates that work well for that. You can buy actual sliders. Paper plates also work well for that. And then we're going to use some mini bands. Okay. If you don't have these, it's okay. They just add some extra load. So you might want them for the extra resistance. So I'll let you guys get stuff and then we'll start. We're going to focus on inner thigh stuff. We'll work the whole body, but with a focus of the inner thigh stuff, which are called our adductors. What they do is they move the leg from out here to here. The other thing they do is if I'm on this leg and I'm like this, they move me to that leg, right? So if I'm balancing on one leg or I slip and I'm on this leg, these adductors are going to help bring me back upright. So in a context of like skiing and you hit some like mashed potato snow and you get thrown onto the one leg and the other leg kind of goes out here, your adductors are what are going to help bring you back together. Okay? That would be the same in any sport. So in soccer and in running also, the adductors are part of what keep us coming over top of that landing leg. Okay? So they help bring us to our midline in a number of contexts. The adductors, interestingly enough, they attach to the sit bone on the pelvis, just so you've got some anatomy. And then they run down and are quite thick down towards this knee, quite low. But they're not just on the inside, they're also under the hamstrings and cover this part of the back of the femur. So they also help this hamstring glute stuff. So when the hamstrings and the glutes and the adductors are all working well, we've got really good stability in our hips. Okay, so just some anatomy so you understand a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing. We're going to load the adductors in several different ways, being that sometimes when we think in terms of trying to stretch something or trying to get more flexible, usable range of tissues, we think sometimes of just passive stretching, like static passive stretching. So it would be, getting into the position, just relaxing the muscles, feeling a stretch. But flexibility has a few components. We can do something that is dynamic. We can do something that is static. So in terms of dynamic, a joint is going to change position. A joint is going to move. Static, joint doesn't move. Okay? Then the other two types of flexibility are passive and active. Passive being that the muscles are relaxed. Okay? Active, we've got muscular contraction, whether that's isometric. Okay? So if I had an isometric stretch, what do you think it would be, knowing what dynamic means and static means? I would have a static, active stretch. Does that make sense? Because my joint angle isn't going to change with an isometric. If it's active, the other type of contractions I might have are concentric, so the muscle length is going to shorten. okay? Or the muscle length is going to lengthen, eccentric. Either one of those contractions, I'm going to have a dynamic active stretch, okay? So we have 4 types of flexibility that we can develop, and we want to train all of them. Dynamic active, dynamic passive, which is something that if you've gone to a physiotherapist or some massage therapists do it, where they get you to relax the limb and they move the limb. So they're moving it dynamically. The joint is changing position, but your muscles are at rest. Okay? That's really the only time you're going to experience that. We do it a little bit sometimes if we're using the strap and we're using another body part to move the joint. We're trying to relax the muscles as much as possible then in the area. Then we've also got static active and static passive. Okay, so those are the types of flexibility. Super simple. The way we train them are with those same 4 types of stretches. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And lots in fitness, people talk about mobility. Mobility is just a way to measure flexibility. It's flexibility. So you're training flexibility if you want to change your mobility. All mobility is dynamic active and static active work. Okay? But it's kind of become a buzzword, and I think for marketing purposes, people market it, but it's been around forever. It's just flexibility training. Okay, so you're gonna need let's come on to our back. And just take the legs either out long or the knees bent. Oh, sure. Okay, so take the legs out long, knees bent. And you can leave the eyes open or close them. And all you're going to do is take a second and just feel the weight of your body. Feel how it meets the support of the ground. And over the course of the next 5 breath cycles, just notice the parts of you that maybe meet and greet the ground a little bit more. You don't have to make anything happen, just observe. You could put your hands on body parts if you wanted to feel that breath, or you wanted to have more of a connection to those particular body parts. And with your 5th and final exhale, however you are, you're going to come so that your feet are standing on the floor, knees are bent towards the ceiling. Okay, so if your legs were long and now you've come with the legs bent, just kind of notice how that changed the pelvis or your spine or the shoulders. Even the head, in terms of how they're now meeting and greeting the support of the ground. You're going to take a block, and on the skinniest width, you're going to place it between the femurs. So we've got the block, and if you don't have a block, you could take a rolled towel. We're going to use a few different kind of widths here. So we've brought the legs in to the point where we can feel the thighs on the block. You might bring your fingertips or your thumb just to feel the front of your hip crease. And all we're going to do is we're going to start to press into that block with our thighs. And as you do that, you will hopefully start to feel some tension build in the inner thigh muscles. It might be kind of jumpy or shaky. Notice if the muscles across the front of your hip also engage. And if they do, ease off to the point where you can feel your inner thighs starting to work, but you don't feel the front of the hips starting to work, okay? And then you're going to relax the inner thighs, completely relax them to the point where it feels like you might, the block might slip between your legs. And then you're going to again start to build tension, pressing into that block until you feel some inner thigh stuff engaging, but again, that you don't feel the front of the hip stuff engaging. You also want to be mindful that as we start to build tension on those inner thighs and work here, that you don't hold your breath. Again, if you do, you'll just relax and only press to the degree that the front of the hip stuff is easy and the breath is easy. Maintain that isometric tensioning of the inner thigh stuff for 2 and 1. And then you're going to relax it all the way off. We're going to do that one more time. Completely relax it off. Again, to where it feels like you might drop the block towards the pubic bone. And one more time, you're going to start to adduct and squeeze the block, pressing those thighs into it, starting to build some tension in that inner thigh stuff. It might be kind of trembly. Again, notice the front of the hip stuff. You might feel a little bit of the front of the quads, the front of the thighs, or the back of the thighs. We don't want to feel these front hip guys. Okay, and then you're going to ease off. We're going to take the block out and we're going to change it to the second widest aspect and place the block between the thighs. So you might have to take the feet out wider. And again, not so far up that you can feel the pubic bone, but I'm kind of a third of the way towards my knees. You'll place the block between those thighs. And again, we're just going to start to press into that block. So now we're working at a slightly different length of muscle tissue here. Everything else staying the same. So the front of the hip stuff is quiet, breath is easy. Building up some work in those inner thighs. Mine are starting to tremble because I did some of this work yesterday to figure out what I was going to teach you guys tonight. Relax it off. 2 more times. So once you relax it off, you could even take the block out to make sure that you've totally relaxed those inner thighs. Place it back in. And again, you're going to start to build some tension through those inner thighs. Notice if you feel your pelvis shift position as you start to tension the inner thighs. See if you can move the legs into the block without either tipping or tilting the pelvis. Relax it off. One more time at this width. So start to press into that block. Now, if we were thinking in terms of being totally relaxed, being a 0, to being like the Hulk and crushing the block into powder, I want you to build tension to like 50 to 60%. Okay. And some of you, I know when I first started doing this, I could really only do like maybe 10%, or the front of my hips would start to fire. So let that be your gauge. But in terms of maximum kind of tension that you could get, you're going to find like 50 to 60% here. And then we're going to relax it off. We're going to give the block a quarter turn. So now we're at the widest width of that block, and you're going to place it between those thighs. You'll probably be moving out towards the knees. So now if we're maybe halfway between the hip and the knee, opposed to 2/3, and then you're going to start to press into that block. Just feel your 3 points of your foot on the floor. Check the front of the hip stuff. Check in with your breathing. Notice if it's easier to kind of tension one side and then the other side catches up. If that's the case, relax it off. This next time when you go, I want you to start to tension the side that kind of lags. So start pressing with it and then have that other side just meet it. So I notice my right side is really quick. And so I led with my left side right now. And stuff is really jumpy, jumpy, jumpy. This is like a new firing pattern because I'm used to adducting right first, it appears, and then relax off. So we'll do that one more time. So again, start to tension with that side if you feel like there's a side that kind of lags, and then just meet it with the other leg, so that the tensioning feels a lot more even left to right. Breath is easy. And make no mistake, training the flexibility this way, we're also training strength. So in terms of motor abilities, we can work on flexibility, strength, endurance, coordination, agility, or motor control. And we're working motor control here, flexibility here, strength here, and endurance, you know, as we do each contraction, depending on what you are also train. Okay, let that go. Set the block to the side, take the legs out long, and just check in that body scan position. So maybe when you come here after doing that, you notice tension in your low back, but maybe didn't notice yourself using your low back when we were doing the block press. So the next time you do that, you might want to pay attention to the low back and just notice if you're trying to tuck or tilt the pelvis, which would engage the low back muscles. Okay. You might feel like there's just a different quality through the pelvis. You might feel like you're more open through the front of the hips. Just notice what you notice. We're going to stand the feet up on the floor. And we're going to walk the feet out, but keep the knees in line with the hips. So this brings our femurs into a bit of internal rotation. You're going to take your block again. And on the skinniest or medium width, you're going to fill the space between your thighs. Okay, you're going to start to press into that block and press the feet into the floor so the hips lift up. So we're biasing the inner thigh stuff as we come up into this bridge. Okay. You don't have to lift the pelvis super high. We're not going to go into extension of the back. Just really working in this really stable pelvic position here. Little press into the block with an equal amount of press of the feet into the floor. And then we're going to lower it down. Okay, we'll do that 2 more times. So again, start to find this pressing into the block and start to press into the ground with the feet. Lift the pelvis. If you feel your low back working to lift you up at all, more so than, say, the back of the thigh, the inner thigh, the glute stuff, what you can think of doing is lower down. The next time as we go to lift, you might think about trying to pull the feet towards the pelvis as you press the feet down. The other thing you can do is imagine pressing the ceiling away as if you're in a plank position. Again, start to squeeze the block, press into the ground, press the ceiling away with your hands. Okay, actually, as we're here, everyone bring their hands up. Taking the left fingers with the right palm, reach the heel of the left hand to the ceiling, just coming into some passive wrist extension here while we're lifted in bridge. Think of reaching the heel of that left hand to the ceiling as you gently draw the fingers towards you with that right hand. Switch sides, reach with the heel of that right hand. And release. You're going to release the hips down. Take the block out. One more time, take the legs long. Okay, we're gonna stand the feet up, working a little bit of core stuff here. So what you're gonna do is, let's take the right foot off the floor, and you're gonna grasp it with the right hand. So the right hand is behind the right thigh, and with the right arm straight, I want you to think about trying to reach that right thigh away. So we're kind of tensioning this right side a little bit with the hand holding the leg there, but the leg trying to reach away from you, only to the degree that you don't pull yourself up off the floor, that the shoulder can remain down. So with that tensioning there, we're gonna lift the left leg up, and all you're gonna do is externally rotate. I'm gonna lower that leg. Externally rotate that left leg, neutral, internally rotate it. Neutral, externally rotate it. Neutral, internally rotate it. So again, now this is some dynamic active work. Low load though, it's just our leg. Sometimes though our leg can feel very heavy. Okay, release that down. We're going to take that right hand onto the front of the right thigh, trying to push the knee into the hand and the hand pressing into that thigh. Again, you're going to lift up that left foot. This time you're going to tap down with the toes and back up. Down with the toes and back up. So the pelvis stays quiet, and we're moving that leg in the hip socket. Could reach the leg out longer. Could reach it out longer, but up towards the ceiling. Reach it up to the ceiling. You could keep it long. Reach it down to the floor. Draw it up. Reach it out to the ceiling. Lower it down. Draw it up. Reach it out to the ceiling, draw it down, reach it up. Bring both knees into the chest and then both feet to the floor. So we're going to lift that left leg, left hand hooks behind the thigh. Press the thigh into the fingers, holding that there. We're going to lift up the right leg and just take it to some external and internal rotation. Just to the degree that, again, the pelvis isn't moving, but we're moving the leg in the available range that we have here into external rotation, neutral, internal rotation. One more time, external rotation, neutral, internal rotation. Okay, set that leg down, hand comes to the thigh, arm is straight, thigh into hand, hand into thigh resisting. You're gonna lift that right foot up, and we're just gonna tap the toes and up. Tap the toes and up. You can play with where that hand is pressing on the thigh. You want to have it where the arm can be straight, but that you don't extend your spine at all. And you feel a good connection into the thigh, and the abdominals just lightly engaged here. Okay, again, we could reach up to the ceiling or on more of an angle closer to the ground. But we're going to reach out and up, down, draw it in. Reach and up, down, in, reach out and up, down. One more time. Keep pressing hand to thigh, thigh to hand. Set that down. Let's reach the legs out long. Just take a second here to just notice what you notice. Okay, we're going to start to play with a rolling pattern. So rolling patterns are great because they integrate our proprioceptive system, which all muscle work does, But the other thing is it combines it with our visual system and our vestibular system. So our vestibular system are the little hairs in the canals of the ears that help us with our balance and to know where we are spatially. Okay, so all three of those systems work together to help us have balance. So be able to lose balance and come back to balance. So rolling is really great because it incorporates moving the body, so the muscles are working, but it also works that visual and that vestibular system. Okay, so you want to come to a position where without running into stuff, you can have the arms in this kind of X position as well as the legs. So think of it as like a narrow kind of X. And then what we're going to do is one of your hands is going to reach up and you're going to lift your head and follow that hand. It's going to reach across. Keep reaching, 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 and the rest of the body just follows it. Okay, then we're going to go back using that same hand. This time it peels up and open. The head lifts up. I'm looking, 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 and I come back onto my back. Okay, so now I'm going to do that with the other hand leading. So I'm just going to come away from my wall a little bit off my mat. It comes up. I'm going to lift my head, look, 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 rolling onto my belly. To go back, I reach out to the side. I look, 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 look. I come back onto my back. So it's also a way to practice falling because as you're probably noticing, there's a point when you're rolling where you're going to go from your current base of support to a new one, but you're not there yet. So there is this moment of free fall, if you will. So this is also great. I think it was Debbie asked one class about falling practice. So rolling is another way to practice falling. So now instead of using the arms to take us from the back to the belly and the belly to the back, we're going to use the legs. So we're going to lift one leg up to the hip. It's going to come across. Foot's going to find the floor, reach, 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 and bring us from our back onto our belly. Then to go back, just bend the knee, bring the sole of the foot to the ceiling. Then you're going to lift the foot off the floor, bring the foot to the floor, slide the heel out, and bring you back onto your back. I'm going to move back onto my mat to lead with the other leg. So knee comes up to the chest, reaches across, foot finds the floor, slides along it, rolls me onto my belly. Then I'm going to bend that knee, lift the knee away from the floor, reach it across, find the floor with that foot, extend the leg out long, and I come back onto my back. Okay? Did we go both ways with the legs? Yes, I think we did. Okay, so I want to teach you one other rolling pattern. So the way we're going to do this one is the same way we did the last one to get onto our belly, and then to come to our back, we're going to do something different. So we're going to lead with the hand. It's going to lift up. We're going to look, lift the head off the ground, follow that hand, come onto your belly. So now to go back to my back, I'm going to take this hand, and instead of reaching up and rotating this way, I'm going to bring it onto the floor. Pinky side of my hand to the floor. I'm going to reach under me, almost like I'm screwing a light bulb in, and roll me along the length of that arm. Okay? It's a different feeling. Some people like that feeling better because you've got your limb in contact with the floor. And so there's a bit more sense of control. So in terms of fall training, this one can feel a little bit better. And you can also get this sense of this rotation with the arm, which can be helpful. So let's do the other arm. So you're going to go from being on your back, the way we rolled before, hand comes up, we reach across, follow it, come to your belly. And then to go back, you're going to take that arm, reach it under the opposite arm, pinky towards the floor, and roll your body away from that reaching arm. Okay? So I want you to do a couple more rolls, whichever pattern you feel like you want to finish with. So whether it's the leg leading, whether it's the upper body leading, whether it's the reach across or the reach under the body, just do a couple more rolls, see how that feels for you. And then after you finish doing 2, just come onto your back and check in that body scan. Rolling is also another great place that illuminates where we maybe want to work on some of our flexibility. Okay, so we start to realize, I can't really move my arm that way, or my shoulder that way, or my spine that way. And then we can go and spend some time doing some concentrated work there, and then come back and retrack the rolling pattern. So we might finish with some rolling so you can see what's changed. So just check in that body scan. Notice the bit of work that we've done, just how your body is meeting and greeting the ground now. Okay. Okay, we're going to come on to our side and up to a sitting position, and we're going to come up to standing for one thing. I want to make sure our glutes are really connected before we go to do some more adductor work. So if you don't have a mini loop, a theraband works too, okay, for what we're about to do. The theraband, you just want to have a loop in one end and then a tail available to you. So what you're going to do is we're going to loop it over the ball of the right foot. Okay. And then we're going to plant the big toe mound of the left foot. So not the big toe, but the big toe mound. Back up a little bit here. But the big toe mound, so the base of that big toe, that first ray, is going to be on that theraband. Now, if you have a bunion, I want you to line up your big toe so it's straight ahead. Put your heel wherever it needs to be for that to happen. Press down into that band, and then you're going to spin your heel so it lines up with the big toe again. Okay? If you don't have a bunion, don't worry about that. Then you're going to take that right foot and we're going to step it out so there's some tension on that band, and I've got to press down through that big toe mound of that left foot. Okay, I'm going to shift the weight over that left leg, pressing down on that big toe ray. As you do that and you connect with the big toe, you'll likely feel your glute. Yes? Give me a thumbs up if you feel you're awesome. Okay? That's all we're doing. You're just here connecting with that big toe ray. You can feel free to put a little bit more tension on that band and you'll feel how that lights the glute up a little bit more. Yeah? Okay, take a break. Just stand on both legs. So you've untensioned the right leg for a second. Bring weight onto that left leg. You're going to abduct that right leg. Press down through that big toe. Feel how that glute lights up. Weight is over that left leg. You decide how much you want to abduct. Okay, we could bend and straighten that knee and ankle. Little single leg kind of squat. This guy is just out here for balance and to provide this feedback of the tensioning of this band. Yeah? So this becomes important for you guys that ski, using that big toe mount in your boot. Okay? Good, relax off that. Take the band off, just stand on both legs. And you will likely feel taller and lighter on that left side. Yeah? Okay, cool. So we're gonna go over to the right side. So getting that big toe mound on the band, left foot coming into that loop. Again, if you've got a bunion, line up your big toe so it's straight. That likely will mean your heel kind of has to spin out. Press through the big toe mound, spin your heel back, and you'll feel a bit of a stretch kind of in the area of the bunion. And then weight over that right leg, start to press out that left leg so that you feel the loading from the big toe mound to that glute on the right side. Usually one side, for me anyways, takes a little bit longer for that connection to kind of come through. The left side, it comes through really fast. On the right side, it's now there, but at first I have to kind of play a little bit with how much I'm tensioning out and how much I'm pushing down. So just feel that work, foot up to that hip. The more you shift out over that right leg, the more you'll start to feel that glute turn on. And then if you want, we can start to... So sometimes what happens is when we start to flex at the hip and the knee and the ankle, people will lose that big toe connection. Thinking about pulling yourself to the ground can help with that. Last one. Come on up, take that band off, just come to standing. Notice how that feels. So that'd be a great little primer pre-skiing, downhill or cross country, or before you go for a walk or a run, okay? Just to help get that kinetic chain really connected, foot to hip, which we want. Okay, so that band is gonna go to the side. We're gonna grab our blankets. You will not need your sticky mat, but if you want it, you could use it for your forearms. If you've only got one blanket, that works too. You'll just open it up and kind of gather it. So you've got bunches of blanket between your thighs, which actually, if you don't do this very often, I would recommend using one blanket or one towel. It just gives the brain a bit of safety in terms of, oh, I won't slip past my range and end up on the floor. Okay, so hands are going to be underneath the shoulders, knees and shins are on those blankets. Knees are underneath the hips, okay? All we're going to start to do is play with sliding the legs out. Okay, you can pause where it doesn't feel like there's a lot of tension on it, but it feels like, okay, I've stretched those inner thigh muscles. And then we're gonna flex the feet. So your toes might have been pointing back. I want them to point to the left and the right now. So you've dorsiflexed the feet. What you're gonna do is take your hips back in the direction of your heels. This is asking your inner thigh stuff to lengthen. Does that make sense? Because I'm taking my sit bone by my knees. So that tissue all is having to lengthen here. And then I'm going to come forward and I'm going to go back. Okay, so you are completely in charge of kind of how much input is going into those adductors. As you take the hips back, I want you to think about trying to squeeze the knees together. So now do you feel how now when I get the hips back, I'm going to stay here statically and isometrically load those adductors. Yeah? It might be kind of shaky. Okay, relax it. See if there's anywhere more for the hips to go back. So I felt like I was at the end of my range and I just went further. Anyone else, did that happen? Yeah, cool. Okay, shift yourself forward. maybe it feels like you could slide wider now. Same with me there. Like I felt like, I don't really want to go any further wide, but I can now. So now at this new distance, take the hips back and forward. Doesn't need to be a big movement. Watch what the pelvis is doing. So notice if, as you go back, the tail tucks under. Because think of where the adductors attach. If you're kind of at the end of your line of tension and they attach to the sit bones, they'll avoid doing lengthening if they tuck under. Does that make sense? So keep the pelvis neutral. Watch for that tuck under. Go back. When you get to where it feels like, okay, that's as far back as I want to go, think about squeezing the knees together. 4, 3, 2, 1. Literally squeeze the knees together to slide up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Awesome. Okay. From here, what we're going to do is keep the right knee underneath us, and we're going to slide the left foot out long. Okay, so we've got this left leg out long. Okay, from here, what you're going to do is keep sliding that left leg out long. That's asking this adductor to lengthen, both of them to lengthen, okay? And then squeeze together. So I'll do a quarter turn here. So we're over top of that right leg. This left leg's gonna go. I'm lengthening both adductors, yeah? And then I'm squeezing back over top of that right leg. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. We're going to reach over to the left. And then squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Take that hand to the floor. Lift. Lower. Come up. Slide. Side bend. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Lower onto that hand. Lift. We're going to lift 2 more times here. Lift. Lift. Foot comes down. Come up. Slide. Side bend. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Lower. Lift. 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 1 more time. Come on up, slide out, reach over, squeeze up, come down onto that hand. 1, 2, hold the leg, little pulse. 4, 3, 2, 1, little circles, flex the foot. 4, 3, 2, 1, change direction with the circles. 4, 3, 2, 1, come on back. Come on to both knees and onto the hands. Let's just feel the difference side to side. So you're going to let the legs slide out. Shift your hips back towards the heels. Yeah, I run into tension sooner on my one side than on my other side. Anyone else feel that? So we'll do the other side and then come on back. Okay. So left knee is going to stay on, right leg's going to slide out long. Now, if your adductors, if you're somebody, which was me, that the adductors are like, I can't get my foot on there like that, Dawn. You can be on this inside edge. You can also be here. Okay, so I can slide out, slide out, slide out, slide out. I might come onto that heel, right? Side bend. and then pull back. So your foot doesn't have to look the same as me, okay? I'm working slightly different tissues here than here. This would be more akin to a front split than a side split position. But if you don't care about doing the splits, it doesn't matter anyways, because that's not what you're training for. You're training so those adductors can pull you back over your standing leg, which either foot position is going to do. Okay, so one more time again, slide out. Find that side bend over that extended leg. Pull yourself back together. Good. 2 more times like that, and then we'll add the lowering of the hand. Slide, 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 side bend. The side bend just adds load to that extended leg. So if you want to stay upright, you're fine to do that. Pull together. One more time, slide it out. If you want more load over that extended leg, side bend. Squeeze it together. Put that hand down. Lift the leg. Bring it down. The next time we'll lift the leg 3 times. Squeeze. Lower that hand. 1, 2, 3. So hopefully you're feeling outer butt stuff on that leg we're going over top of. Squeeze up. Lower the hand. If there's too much outer butt stuff, raise the hand so you come onto a block. Okay. Slide side bend if you want more load on that extended leg. Squeeze it up. One down, lift. 3, 2, pulse here. 4, 3, 2, 1. Flex the foot, circles. 4, 3, 2, 1. Change direction. 4, 3. Keep reaching through that standing knee. 2, 1. Come on, back up. Let's come back into that frog position here. So up on the hands. Again, toes can be under to start. You're going to slide the legs out. Once you come to as low as you want to go, you could come down onto the forearms too, depending how low you get to the ground. Dorsiflex those feet. Take the hips back towards the heels. Just rock forward and back here. Gently press the knees, inside of the knees, into the ground. Find that isometric tensioning. So some dynamic active as we move forward and back. Stay back, press, press, press. Start to go against gravity. Bring yourself up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Squeeze. And rock the hips back to the heels. Nice and long here. Okay, you can roll yourself up and then come onto your back into that body scan position. Okay, so we're going to finish tonight with some passive static stretching for those adductors. Oh. So just notice how it feels here. Before we come into our restorative posture, do 2 rolls. So go from your back to your belly, and then your belly to your back, and then do the other side in one of the rolling patterns, okay? And just notice how it feels having done the work that we did with the inner thigh stuff. If that changed how the roll happens for you this second time around. Okay? Just notice what you notice. Then we're going to come back onto our backs, and we've got a couple of options here. So we're going to come into a supported cobbler pose or butterfly pose. And depending what props you have, you've got a couple of options. So one option is either with a yoga strap or with the long elastic if you've got it handy. You'll make a loop or the yoga strap, and it comes around the outside of the knees so that when you bring the soles of the feet together, it supports the legs. Okay, so this is one option. If you've got a bolster or pillows, you could have your torso elevated with the legs supported that way. Another option would be to use that support, but you could take the two blocks, and we've done this before, where you bring the corners of the blocks together and create this V. So that is going to be underneath my pelvis, okay, with the V open towards my feet and the tip of the V towards my head. Okay, so then I could, without the band or with it, bring the soles of my feet together, and I'm in this Baddha Konasana, but also supported bridge. So Setu Baddha Konasana. Okay, so this would be a third and fourth option. So we've got with support or without support around the legs. I'm actually going to put the support in. We've got upper body elevated or pelvis elevated. So you decide where you want to be tonight. Okay. And just settle in. We're just going to be here for a few moments. I find elevating the pelvis is calming for me. But I also find that elevating the upper body has this different sense of kind of energy pooling and grounding into the pelvis. So both work. You might want to try both. I like the option of the support around the legs. Often this pose is supported with the strap behind the pelvis. But as somebody that tended towards an anterior tilt, that just pulled me more into that pattern. So if you're somebody that tends to be quite flat through the lumbar, that type of support would work better for you. If you're like me and you tend towards an anterior pelvic tilt and more lower back lordosis, this setup is better. Okay, because it doesn't, you're not getting pulled into that pattern even more. So just let your attention really open up like the aperture of a camera lens to notice the next breath and to pay attention fully to the next breath. Bring your attention into your mid back for the next two breaths. kind of the space between and towards the lower half of the shoulder blades and just below the shoulder blades. And just feel this area of your mid back as you breathe in, feel the movement there, and as you breathe out. You might bring a hand to the belly, ensuring that the belly isn't moving more than this area of the mid back as we breathe in and we breathe out. Okay, whether your upper body or your lower body is supported, you're going to bring the soles of the feet to the floor, the knees towards one another. If you've got something underneath the pelvis, you're just going to lift the hips to slide it out and lower down. If you've got something to support the upper body, you're just going to roll to the side, move it out of the way so you can come onto your back. Take a second to bring the knees towards one another and just take the feet out a little bit wider, just for a couple of breaths here. And then with your third exhalation, you'll take whatever support is on the legs off and extend the legs out long. Okay, so extending those legs out long. You might lengthen the neck, just using the fingers to draw the back of the skull towards the top of the mat, just lengthening the neck. Settling in here for your final posture of tonight's practice, Shavasana. If you'd like something to help anchor the mind, you could have this intention of, as you inhale, feeling the whole midline. That includes the inner thigh stuff. So inhaling the midline, and as you exhale, just this diffusing out to the periphery edges of the body. Inhaling this cardinal midline, exhaling out to the periphery. You might even silently say midline as you breathe in and periphery as you breathe out. Or inhale as you breathe in and then say exhale silently as you breathe out. When the mind wanders, you'll just bring it back to this inhale and the next exhale. Your next inhale, you'll just count down from 5 to 0 with each phase of your breath. And then when you get to a count of 0, just gently start to bring movement back to the body in whatever way feels good for you tonight. It could be starting small, wiggling fingers and toes, or rocking or rolling a body part side to side. Might be stretching out long, like a full body yawn, or curling into a ball. But just take a few moments to invite movement back to the body and make your way onto your side. There's no rush. Let yourself just linger with each movement and linger when you get to your side. I'm going to invite everybody when we come up to a seated position to turn cameras on, just so we can finish practice, just acknowledging one another and sharing space and our intention to practice with one another. So once you make your way to whatever position's comfortable sitting for you, you could be sitting on your shins or legs cross-legged or legs out long. Let's bring the palms together, and we're going to bring the thumbs just to the left of the breastbone before the heart in Anjali Mudra. We'll gently bow the head, let the gaze fall on the fingertips. Just as you inhale, feel the space around the heart, that mid-back area, just expand. And as you exhale, maybe the corners of the mouth curl up, just in a smile. Om Shanti Shanti, peace. Thank you for practicing with me tonight.